20
Less than
days
2
sidelined
hours
by
before
injury,
tip-off,
Caitlin Clark returned
Indiana
and
drops a
picked
bombshell. Caitlin Clark out.
Just like that.
No warning, no build-up, nothing. 1 minute she's the story everyone's watching. The next she's sitting in street clothes with a back that wouldn't cooperate. And honestly, the way this whole situation unfolded says a lot more about where the Fever are right now than just a single missed game. Let's start from the beginning because the timeline here is actually pretty telling. Tuesday evening, Indiana drops their mandated injury report. Clark's not on it. 5 o'clock Wednesday, still nothing. Then at 5:30, an hour and 40 minutes before the game, her name finally shows up. Back injury. Doubtful becomes out before most fans even had time to process it. Now look, injuries happen. That's basketball. But the timing of this one is going to raise some eyebrows, and it already has. Coach Stephanie White addressed the media before the game, and she kept it simple. Clark woke up stiff and sore. They monitored her, got her through a workout, waited to see how her body responded, and by around 5 in the evening they had their answer. It wasn't good enough to play. White's exact words, "This is not the time to take a chance." And honestly, from a coaching standpoint, that's the right call. You're 4 games into a season, you've got a player averaging career numbers. You don't throw her out there on a back that's already telling you it needs a day. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't some surprise twist. If you've been watching Indiana this season, you already know Clark has been dealing with her back since day one. After the season opener, she left the bench mid-game to go into the tunnel.
People noticed.
Some people panicked. Then she came back out and kept balling like nothing happened. When reporters asked her about it afterward, she said her back gets out of line pretty quickly. That's her exact framing, out of line. Like it's something she manages the same way most of us manage a tight schedule or a bad commute. Just part of the routine. And the Fever have been building a routine around it. They expanded their medical staff heading into the season specifically so players could get real-time attention during games. Adjustments in the tunnel, heat pads on the bench, professionals on hand to handle things in the moment rather than waiting until the locker room. White said early in the year that this would become normal. Not alarming, just normal. That context matters a lot when you're trying to figure out how serious Wednesday's situation actually was. White was clear. She doesn't think this is going to be an ongoing issue. She's not a doctor. She said that herself. But from where she's standing, they're not managing a chronic problem. They're not hiding anything. Clark is healthy in the bigger picture. This was a single bad morning that turned into a day off, and the cautious decision won out over the competitive one. Which, given what happened to Clark last season, is probably the smartest move Indiana could have made. Because here's what the 2025 season looked like. 13 games. That's it. Left quad, left groin, right groin, ankle. One thing after another, stacking up until the whole season was basically gone before it started. For a player at Clark's level, in what should have been her prime, watching from the sideline while her body kept finding new ways to break down was brutal. And it wasn't just brutal for her, it was brutal for the entire franchise that had been built around her presence and production. So when you hear White say they want to be cautious, when you hear her say they're not managing anything chronic but they also want to give this the time it needs, that's not just coach speak. That's a staff that remembers what last year cost them and isn't willing to repeat it for the sake of one regular season game in May. Now, let's talk about what Clark was actually doing before she had to sit. For games in, and she was putting up 24.3 points and 9 assists per game. Career highs on both. She was also pulling down 5 rebounds a game, which isn't a number people usually associate with her, but it's been quietly impressive. The version of Caitlin Clark that showed up to start this season looked different. More assertive in scoring, still distributing at an elite level, and doing it all with the kind of efficiency that makes opposing defenses genuinely uncomfortable. To put the assist number in perspective, 9 dimes a game through 4 games is not just good for a guard, it's elite at any position. She was top of the league, orchestrating an offense that had real teeth this season. And the scoring bump wasn't just about volume, it was about taking better shots in better spots. She looked more comfortable operating in the mid-range, more willing to attack closeouts, more decisive in transition. Whatever work she put in during the offseason, it showed up immediately in how she was playing. Which makes a back issue at this point in the year just a little more frustrating from a fan perspective. You wait all off-season. She comes out of the gate playing the best basketball of her career, and then 4 games and you're watching the Fever take the court without her for the first time this season. It's not the end of the world. It's probably not even a big deal. But it's a reminder that with Clark, there's always going to be a layer of concern underneath the highlight clips. What Portland saw Wednesday was an Indiana team without its center of gravity. Every offensive system the Fever run flows through Clark's reads and decisions. When she's not there, the spacing changes, the decision-making at the top of the key changes, and teams that have been game planning around her suddenly have to adjust on the fly. That cuts both ways. The Fever have to adjust too, and figuring out how to operate without her is actually useful information to have early in a long season. The bigger picture here is about sustainability. Can Indiana keep Clark healthy through a full season? Can the expanded medical staff and the new approach to in-game treatment make enough of a difference that this year looks nothing like last year? Because the talent is obviously there. The motivation is there. The system around her looks better than it ever has. The only thing standing between this team and something special is staying on the court long enough to actually build something. One missed game is nothing. One missed game with a team that's being appropriately careful is actually a green flag if you're an Indiana fan. The panic response is understandable given what happened last year, but panic isn't warranted here. White didn't sound worried. The training staff clearly had a plan. And Clark herself has been handling this back situation all season without it affecting her performance in the 4 games she's played. The story on Wednesday wasn't that Caitlin Clark got hurt. The story was that the Indiana Fever decided her long-term health was worth more than one night's box score. That's a franchise making the right call. Whether it pays off over the course of a full season, that's the question worth watching. Game treatment make enough of a difference that this year looks nothing like last year? Because the talent is obviously there. The motivation is there. The system around her looks better than it ever has. The only thing standing between this team and something special is staying on the court long enough to actually build something. One missed game is nothing. One missed game with a team that's being appropriately careful is actually a green flag if you're an Indiana fan. The panic response is understandable given what happened last year, but panic isn't warranted here. White didn't sound worried. The training staff clearly had a plan. And Clark herself has been handling this back situation all season without it affecting her performance in the 4 games she's played. The story on Wednesday wasn't that Caitlin Clark got hurt. The story was that the Indiana Fever decided her long-term health was worth more than one night's box score. That's a franchise making the right call. Whether it pays off over the course of a full season, that's the question worth watching.